Hello, online pipe community. Ethan, Parsimonious Piper here. Today we have another episode of Morsels for Mental Manducation. And yes, we are diving right back into the next chapter of C.S. Lewis' Mere Christianity, the first of his two chapters on faith. But first, in a largish 3-star pipe by Lee Lovett, got another bowl of Peter Heinrich's number 169. Nice English that we'll talk about tomorrow. Faith. Lewis talks about two aspects of faith, so he's got two chapters on it. Today we'll discuss the easier, maybe, of the two. And this is the basic definition of Christian faith as the belief that the things that Christianity teaches are true, and at least some attempt to apply that belief to your life. Why you may ask, is such a belief considered a virtue? What is the moral content of believing something or not believing it? Well, if an honest person inquires about any subject and forms an opinion based on the evidence that they find for or against some particular proposition, and their mind is open to new evidence or changes in the evidence, note this can cut both ways, then we don't consider that person to have necessarily made any kind of a moral decision in believing or not. We expect people to evaluate the evidence that they see in front of them and make rational decisions based on what they see as good and bad evidence. Now, they may make a mistake, again, that cuts both ways, in evaluating the quality or the truth of a particular piece of evidence. But we don't necessarily consider that to be a moral failure as much as a judgment failure. So how does faith become a virtue? Consider the person who has been convinced that the teachings of Christianity are true. What does it take to continue believing that, which is faith? Well, when bad things happen in life, or when someone directly challenges the things you say you believe, do you continue to believe them? In the case of Christianity, if you do, that faith is a virtue. It takes some effort. It doesn't just come easily. It is not always easy to believe in a good, gracious, loving God when you see the evil that's in the world. We've discussed that already in a different context. But your faith can be shaken by things that happen to you, by things that happen around you, by hard questions that are asked. It's in this context that Lewis calls faith a virtue. It is something that requires some effort. It requires daily cultivation. It requires focus, concentration. He gives what I think is a rather astute example by way of analogy. Anesthesia. It's really easy for me to believe that the anesthesiologist knows what he's doing and will calculate the correct amount of whatever drugs are being used and the correct timing of applying them and that by the time the surgeon begins cutting, I will be completely unconscious and will not be aware of what's going on. I can believe that. It's a whole different thing to be lying on that table having the anesthesiologist approach. Knowing that there have been stories of people who have woken up paralyzed in the middle of surgery and felt the pain. Do I still believe that that anesthesiologist knows what he's doing? Has any of the evidence changed? No. Not unless this was the guy involved, in which case I should definitely pick a different hospital. It's not always easy to maintain our faith in anything when adverse situations arise or when new evidence or a new challenge is thrown at us. That makes faith a virtue. Just a sec. I like to tamp just barely from the outside edges in. Try and keep that ember going in the middle. Not smash straight down on it. And so in the face of those kinds of challenges, that's when faith becomes a virtue. There are an awful lot of Christians who are Christians only because they were raised as such. It's what their parents taught them. It's what they learned when they were taken to church or parochial or private school. The flip side of that, there are an awful lot of atheists and agnostics out there who are only atheists and agnostics because they attended public schools and had that entire worldview, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly, taught to them in the same way that Christians or people of other religions are taught what they are taught as children. These many of these people are what I would classify as lazy Christians or lazy atheists, agnostics. They haven't really come to their beliefs through any great effort, and so they've never had their beliefs truly challenged. I have had conversations with some very studied atheists and agnostics. Those people are actually quite a joy, the honest ones, to converse with, because they will admit their doubts in the same way that I admit mine. What, you think that my faith is perfect? You don't know me very well. But those who have never taken a deeper look at what they believe and why they believe it, those are the ones on both sides of the aisle, so to speak, whose beliefs are most likely to be swayed and changed. I like talking with the ones who have actually studied both sides of an issue and disagree with me on it. You see, at university, one of my dissertations centered on the thesis that our institutions, be they societal or personal, must be challenged in order to prove their value, their truth, their worth to us. That if those institutions don't face some kind of a challenge, which is where faith becomes a virtue, then we're not really sure we believe them or why we believe them. When I wrote that dissertation, which got high marks, by the way, I was an atheist. With that, light something you like. Think about your institutions and enjoy your afternoon.